We'll start with a video to showcase like what we are doing, or like what we have done, and then I'll talk about what we actually do. And now with the slides. Thank you. So what we saw there was essentially like our launch video for the pivot that we did. But before going into this, I want to take like a step back and speak a little bit about the past, sort of like how we started with FXHash. So for those of you that might not know, FXHash was initially founded in October or November of 2021, so 4 years ago, by generative artist. Huh? Ah, okay. What do I need to do? Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I'm FXHash, or like we are FXHash. We were initially founded in 2021, and still are a platform around generative art. You might remember back in 2021, ETH was still proof of work. There were like huge gas fees, and a lot of people simply were not able to collect, but also a lot of artists were not able to create. Was essentially art blocks that originated or that really like made generative art as the big thing that it was. But a lot of artists were simply not able to upload there. There were queues of like more than a year to upload their own art, and we thought that this frankly is bullshit. So our co-founder, or Seifert, who is a generative artist himself, he said, fuck that, and he wanted to create a platform for himself to create art. And that really resonated. And we created that on Tezos, which had and still has the huge like happenings within the art scene. There was Hickett Nong, like a lot of artists were there. And through that, we found like an instant product market fit. We had a lot of collectors. I started my collecting journey on there. We had a lot of artists releasing, and that ultimately led to like more than 2.5 million artworks being sold. However, one of the issues that we've seen over the years is that the market overall did not really work out for a lot of people. And that ultimately resulted in us creating the FXH protocol on Base. Throughout these 4 years in the past, we came from Tezos to Ethereum to Base, which is now where we are mainly up. So our platform still runs on the secondary on Tezos, but the main things for artists creating now is happening on Base. And what are we doing there? We try to create a new economic system that makes it possible for artists to tap into their value much more than you could simply by just like releasing art. And we are doing that through something which we call art coins. What are art coins and why do we do it? There's like another common example of this that was showcased by Zora, which is what they call creator coins. Creator coins essentially allow any like creator to tokenize their postings, which is really interesting because one of the things that a lot of like creators are unable to do is monetize with it. You can only monetize if you have like more than 10,000, 50,000 followers. You can only monetize if you have ad spend going on, and therefore this was like a huge innovation for that space. And we looked at that and we thought, hey, this is actually quite interesting because as we are an open platform, we saw a lot of the artists that have initially released on FXHash or released in generally in the digital art space also struggle to make a wage or like to make like a living wage of the art that they have sold. Fundamentally to us, the business model was broken a little bit because artists will always create. Artists should always create. But in a market when there's more and more art being released and less collectors being there to collect it, that can result in a very like vicious cycle where an artist releases more work, that they might not sell it as much, they might need to reduce their pricing, and overall collectors are then less inclined to sell that art. It is a stupid cycle. I wish for this cycle to not be happening, but this is a cycle that we have seen. Again, we are an open platform, so we have a lot of artists that tried to, for the first time, to release generative art. We had a lot of artists that might not are household names yet, but they started their career with it, and that still sort of like was an issue to them. So we really thought, okay, what can we do to sort of like put a stop to this cycle? And one of the things that when we looked at the actual like art market, what we have realized, and that might sound a bit morbid, but when you look at a market of a successful artist, the market gets much better, financially speaking, for those artists if the artist is dead, because then they can't create anymore. But obviously we do not want to kill our artists. This is not the option. So what do we do? And that really resulted in us thinking about sort of like art coins, because what are art coins, or like what do we want to do with them? An art coin is an ERC20. Like it is an ERC20 like any other ERC20 token. We just call it art coin because we like the name. But the main thing is that now every artist that releases an art coin has an asset that is supply capped. Like there, and if you, as an artist, are telling to the world, hey, this is my supply capped asset, and I'm gonna use that asset for all of my future artworks. And you can use that to support me. You can use that as a patronage token. But most importantly, you can use that to mint my art. Then over time, there will be value driven towards that art coin. This might sound, well, this might look a little bit sort of like tough because it's like a technical drawing, but it's important to understand the overall concept of the innovation of what we're trying to do. So each art coin, like there's of each art coin of like dollar ciphered, or like any gallery can also use it, they will always have 1 million tokens. And those 1 million tokens, we are using them to also mint art. So as an artist, you get paid in ETH or USDC. And as a collector, so it's the same thing as before, you get paid in like the currency of your choosing. The difference, however, is that as a collector, you are paying in ETH and USDC, paying the artist. And then the other thing is that you're also paying a part of the art coin. What are we doing with the art coin? Essentially, we are burning it. We are sending it to an OXDAT address, and therefore, over time, the supply of that art coin gets reduced. We don't have to kill the artist anymore, but we're killing, essentially, over time, the supply of that art coin. So that now is like a little bit like economic, and it's like a mix of like tokenomics and all of this. But what will happen, or essentially what is known or showcased in normal economics, is mostly that if supply decreases and demand stays the same or increases, over time that market will turn upwards, meaning there will be value driven towards the art coin. And that is happening for all of the art coins that are out there. We launched this beta, sort of like invite beta, in July with like 20 artists. The artists released projects, and over those 20 projects, on average, I think like 10, 11, 12% of the supply already was burned. So we see that this system is working. We do not see yet that there's like this huge value shift happening and there's value coming into the art coins, but this is something that is a medium to long-term thing. Just because you have a token doesn't mean that suddenly you're all rich. But we think that this is a system that can enable artists to build an economy of their own, also where they can just be like where it's much easier for them to invest in. And how does that translate to FXH, which is the mother token in that sense? All of the art coins are paired with FXH. Why do we do that? First of all, to deliver value to the main token, but then also because this allows for easy trading. Like there's always liquidity. The artist does not have to set up like find ETH or USDC or any other stablecoin to pair to create a functional liquid market, but we provide that with FXH. So if there's a collector that is coming in and they want to buy an art coin of an artist or an art coin of a collective or an art coin of a gallery, they first need to buy the FXH token. putting value into that ecosystem, and then that FXH is used to put value into the art coin itself. So even as an example, for example, I want to purchase an artwork for $500. I do not hold FXH yet. I purchased $500 of FXH. The FXH gets a value increase, and then I also purchased the $500 in Artcoin. The Artcoin gets a value increase. And the funny thing about this is that with one $500 transaction, you suddenly have created $1,000 in value because it is a looping system. Obviously, the other way around, when people are selling, this also can be negative. But I try to build, like we try to build companies and ways where we try to strive for positive environments. And that really is the overall idea behind this, and this is what we sort of like call art capital markets, similar to what we are seeing right now, also happening a little bit on Base, a little bit on Solana, which is like internet capital market, essentially trying to bring artists or companies on chain and make it possible for anyone to invest in. So that's roughly the system. And then also obviously the FXH also gets deflationary because the more altcoins there are out, the more sort of like we put into the LP pool, and that is not, the FXH is not burned in that sense, but the FXH is at least removed from supply. So we have now created a system where the FXH, the main token, is deflationary, which is good in the medium to long term, and also a system where the altcoins are deflationary in the medium to long term. You might ask yourself, okay, why do we actually need to do this? I think I've alluded to it a little bit in the past minutes, but the other point of the story is that we truly believe that every artist and every collective or every gallery is or should have its own economy. We believe that social media sort of like gave every person a voice, and every artist also has a voice. But for a lot of artists, or also especially for a lot of collectors, they are at times priced out of their favorite artist. They might not be able to mint it as the artist like has too much, is just like priced too highly, and therefore collectors at times cannot participate in the upwards trajectory of their artist. And frankly, I think this is a little bit stupid. I feel like if I like an artist, I should be able to participate in the upwards trajectory. So therefore, again, it makes a lot of sense, in our opinion, to have like an investable asset that is easier to get into and to get out of. And that is, again, why we created these like art coins. And I think it really helps align the capital. And we have seen that it worked so far, or that it is working so far. And we're really interested to sort of like continue to push this overall direction. Because what we've seen, and I think this is already sort of like the closing statement, what we've seen over the past 5 years or 4 years is that a lot of platforms within the digital art space have closed down. Not because there wasn't good enough art. There's always good enough art. There will always be good enough art. But because for some reason, the economics of all of it did not work out anymore. And this is our sort of like answer to this. It might sound a bit radical, and it might be that some people say, oh, you're financializing everything. But at the same time, I say to this that art always has been financialized. Ever since art has been around, people have been paying for art. And ultimately, we are operating in a field that is hugely intertwined with crypto. And therefore, to me or to us, it makes the most sense to just go this straight, like the straightest way, which is an ERC20 token. Like if we all agree that art has a financial value, then we should be able to invest in that art in the most liquid way possible. And that ultimately is an ERC20, or how we call it, an art coin. And that's what we call art capital markets. We've been doing this now for 4.5 months, I think. And it's been really interesting to like see a lot of the receptions that we have been getting. Some negative, some positive, some being like, I don't get it, which is all good. But ultimately, we're just trying to like further prove the point that art and artists, galleries, curation collectives, anything really should be an investable asset, because we believe that any asset in the medium to long-term run any financial asset will trade on chain. So at that point, artists should as well, and that's what we're building. I have a lot of time left, but happy to answer questions on this. So yeah, there's someone in the back.
My question is, how is this different from Zora? I agree with you that there is a vacuum since they pivoted. Zora also started with just art coins, and then they expanded to do creator coins. So I'm listening to this, and I'm just like, okay, so they're 10 steps behind Zora, doing art coins. Maybe they'll do creator coins next. Maybe I missed it. What's the difference?
You didn't miss it, I missed it. The difference is that on Zora, or like the similarities between Zora and FX Hash is that every creator, in our case artist, has one art coin, one creator coin. The difference is with them, each new post that a creator creates is also a coin. So it's just like coins all around, only coins. In our case, an artist has one art coin and they still release their art as NFTs, as ERC-721s. So I create my art coin / artist, and then I create art. And with that art, I still get like the normal ERC-721 collectors. Like it's not fractionalized or anything. If a collector buys my artwork, they get the full NFT. And that really is the difference. And I don't know exactly how the Zora burn mechanic works in that sense. I think it also like pools like the creator coin into the post coins and all of it. But ultimately for us, this wasn't really a solution because I'm a collector myself and I don't, like I might, like okay, maybe if I am able to hold 5% of a Picasso or whatever, I might consider it. But like A, I don't have the money, B, I don't have the chance for it, and C, I really don't like it as well. Like I want to own an artwork and call it my own. And that always has been like a core concept behind us, and I think that's really the difference. So there's like this top level asset, which is the art coin, and then the artist still releases the NFTs. They still get the same money that they got before, like they're selling art for ETH or USDC or TAS or whatever in that sense. The only difference is we add this art coin component to it and try to therefore derive value or like create a new asset that then hopefully also creates new revenue streams to him. Because the artists, they do get trading fees. They are able to sell some of their art coin, which is then, obviously it's not equity, but it's not equity yet. Like why shouldn't it be in the future? Why shouldn't we create like a possibility to invest in artists? And why shouldn't they be able to raise money off that? Why shouldn't they be able to sell some on the open market to finance like their lifestyle or to finance just like their day-to-day life? And I think that's the main difference, that we really focus on the art.
Copy. So there's one ERC-20 per artist, and then when I upload a new artwork, that's a 721.
Exactly.
How do I get to pick my own price? How much fees do artists, or how much fees does FX Hash take when I'm selling my 721s?
Right now we take 25%.
And I get to pick my own price?
Yeah, you pick whatever you want. You can sell it for $1,000, $1. The reason why, and like initially, and that was like, initially FX Hash started with 0% fees in our beta because like we just wanted to get it out there. Then we increased it to 2.5% fees. And looking back, it was really good because like the artist got a lot of money, but ultimately what sadly happened is that we as a platform did not make enough money to actually sustain ourselves, to sustain like a development team. In the times, or like in the frenzy times, like late 21, early 22, it worked out. We were able to like generate, we were able to essentially be break even, and we were bootstrapped, all of it was good. But as soon as the market tanked and volumes were not $10 million a month anymore, but volumes were $1 million a month, 2.5% just like simply wasn't enough. And therefore we tried to really like hiked up our fees. When we came to ETH, we hiked it up to 10%. Now it's 25. Might be a lot, but it's still half of what a gallery does.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, always.
So if I'm, as a collector, I'm buying an artwork from an artist, right? So the smart contracts or your platform will routed through the artist's coin.
Yes.
But you also said that the artist will receive, I guess, the full sales price.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, where does the value that I'm as the $500 that I'm spending as a collector, it doesn't go to the coin though, right?
So that depends. So how we are showcasing it on the front end is one unified price. So as a collector, you see $500 or maybe $100 because it's easier to actually calculate in the head. So then we say to the artists that they can choose any amount of split between USDC payment and Artcoin payment. They can choose to do just like 0.1% in Artcoin because they just want to sort of like get the full amount of money in USDC, or they can, what we rather recommend is like a 75-25% split. So 75% of the amount of money is like USDC, 25% of the money we use it to, if it's a USDC payment, USDC to ETH to FXH to Artcoin, buy it, burn it. And that's how value gets accrued. And then the other angle, which is obviously you can also simply buy the Artcoin because you want to support the artist, because you believe that over time the Artcoin will increase in value because the artist is doing great art, maybe because of the tokenomic system, but maybe also because you cannot afford to mint an artwork. Like obviously if an artist sells for $25, $5, $1, like everybody might be able to afford it, but if there's an artist selling for $10,000, a lot of people are priced out. But that is then sort of like the idea, okay, I still believe in the artist, I still like the artist, and I want to participate in that artist trajectory. And then sort of like there's obviously trading fees attached to it, and then that is also like how the artist can create like additional revenue streams through it.
Okay, the percentage that goes into the Artcoin that essentially will be burned.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I would like to know more about the primary market. I understand that there is this kind of, if you collect on primary market and you have this NFT that maybe go viral and people go for that NFT and you iterate on that NFT, the primary market collector can get some kind of economy around that?
Are you aware of what we're building with like open form and sort
Yeah.
of like? Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about
the. Okay.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, okay. So when we start, I don't like. So he asked a question about a way or like a specific type of generative art that we introduced when we launched the platform in July. Generative art obviously is hash based, so every like iteration, like every mint creates a new iteration. And what we build a system that allows artists to essentially interlink artworks so that you can evolve artworks similar to crypto kittens in that sense in the past. So an artist could say, okay, do I have something like that? I don't have an example, but you might see this. This is from like the artist eBoy, for the artist group eBoy, and they built like a tower system. The tower system worked in that way that you could add additional sort of like towers or like subsections on top of it, with each additional section like being evolved from the past. And what we built is that if I am as a collector mint something nice, curate a seed essentially, when others are minting on top of my seed, the collector also gets paid. So it is sort of like a way for the collector to curate and then also trying to create like an economic system around it. I omitted that part from the overall presentation because it is a bit hard to get into, but it can yield to really interesting concepts and really interesting like artistic concepts as well by artists. And I think so far there's like some people that I think made up to like 0.5 ETH just from like curating seeds and collect or like other people then collecting based off those seeds. And that might not be much if you look at like the overall crypto market, but I think it's pretty cool that you can mint art and get paid for it without having to sell it. I hope that answered your question. Okay, perfect.
Hello. I'm an artist. I follow FX Hash since 21. I always found it amazing. I collected some projects. I like it. And my question is, I always saw FX Hash related with generative art. And with the new changes you're talking, I can create anything, any altcoin, without thinking of create a big project generative.
Yes. So one of the issues that we have faced is that, like, I love generative art. Like, I started my collecting journey in generative art. Like, Seifert is a generative artist, I believe one of the best of our generation. But the issue is that the generative art market in its current state simply is too small to run a business at the scale that we're in. Like, the solutions that we had as a company were either the following: we close it down and just let our like current solution continue. Like, that would have worked, but that is not something that we would have liked. So the idea was, okay, what can we do? And I think what we have seen as generative art on FX Hash essentially always was like live browser rendered generative art. And there is much more to it than just that. You could even make the argument that a lot of like AI work also like is generative in itself. So why should we exclude that? Why shouldn't we allow artists to create something, especially when those artists also came to us and were like, hey, I want to do this, I want to release on FX Hash, but I am not working in the really like small conscribed niche what you are calling generative art. So what is the answer? Is it, okay, then we are allowing this other type of generative art or this other type of generative art? This does not really work out. Like, ultimately the answer must be, okay, then we are a platform for digital art. And this is also much easier to actually explain to people outside of the space, because it's like art created like digitally, it's art created on a computer, and it just allows us to like increase the artist that we are speaking to, but also allows us to increase the amount of like collectors that we can speak to. And ultimately, this whole system is a bet on the digital art economy. And the bigger we can make that, and the more artists we can get, and the more artists we can get to launch art coins, the more artists we can get to create good art, the better the overall economic system will be for everyone. That's the thing. It's really interesting, because if there's a really successful artist having a really successful art coin, there will be buy pressure on the FXH. And what does that actually mean? That means that the FXH, if FXH increases by 10%, that means that the FXH in all of the liquidity pools of all of the art coins launched also increased by 10%. That means that also like all other art coins are suddenly worth more. And that is really interesting, and therefore we really had to create a system that can be as big as possible, and that is then sadly not restrained to generative art, but to everything. Nice. We have 2 more minutes, maybe one question, otherwise we can also call it. Then we're calling it. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. Sorry. I'm not going anywhere.